All right. Hello, Silent Voices family. I want to welcome you if this is your first time actually joining our channel, and just give you a quick introduction about who we are and what we do. So, my name is Rita Stevens. I'm the founder of Silent Voices, and Silent Voices is a faith-based nonprofit organization where we provide resources and support for special needs children and their families. One of the ways that we do that is we actually have inspirational stories like the one we're going to have today to just kind of inspire you along this journey. And hopefully, it's very helpful to you. So, we're super excited today to finally be talking to Shannon Laurence. She is a local DFW speech therapist. And so, with that being said, Shannon, thank you so much. I know it's been a while. Thank you so much for joining us, and just thank you for being willing to even share your story. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited and privileged to get to share.
Yeah, so now she's going to be a part of the Silent Voices family. So, okay, so let's get started. So, would you be willing to kind of share just kind of the background, what diagnosis you had and how we got started on this journey? And then we'll kind of fast forward and then go to where we are today. Just share a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself.
So I was born at 24 weeks. That's about 3.5 months early. I
Wow.
weighed 1 pound, 7 ounces, and I stayed in the hospital for about 19 weeks.
Wow.
Um, because of my prematurity, I had retinopathy of prematurity, which basically means my retinas would have detached unless they did something. So I had 3 eye surgeries, 2 as an infant, some eye muscle surgeries, and cryotherapy where they had to freeze some things so that my blood vessels wouldn't continue to grow out of hand.
Wow.
And then I had 1 eye surgery a couple years later. Um, and so I am visually impaired, and I that's probably the biggest difficulty that I still face. Thankfully, I'm able to drive and can function in daily life okay, but I have navigated that throughout my life with different strategies and things. And then I also had a heart surgery as an infant, a PD
Oh,
operation in the hospital. And yeah, so my parents could speak more about the early years because, of course, I don't remember it, but
yeah.
I know it was extremely difficult for them. And for me, of course, I almost died a couple of times where my heart stopped beating
Wow.
in the hospital. And after getting home from the hospital, I had really significant feeding and digestive issues that were a big issue that my parents dealt with and had to figure out. So that was hard. And then I had a lot of pneumonia and asthma the first few years of my life too. So just dealing with some of those things.
Wow. It seems like to me in this space, that is a common thread where a lot of kids that deal with things, they deal with digestive issues, they deal with breathing issues. I know you said your dad was also, he was a respiratory therapist, is that right?
Yes, I think when I was born, he was going to school for respiratory therapy.
Okay, okay, okay,
But he definitely was inspired to work with the babies. He was a NICU therapist for
okay.
25, 30 years. And through, I think, my story, he definitely wanted to help with the babies and be in a similar situation because he saw the need for that from when I was in the hospital.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. Like some of this stuff, guys, I didn't know. I just I had a conversation with Shannon. I was like, "Ooh, we have to talk to you." So she's actually sharing new stuff with me too. What you share, the early years beyond kind of that phase where I know when you're an infant, you don't really remember a whole bunch, 1, 2 year old, but as you kind of got into school, that school age, what were some of the obstacles or challenges that you faced, and maybe some things even that your family faced, and how did you guys kind of navigate through that?
Yeah. Well, I had what I call my vision teacher when
Okay.
I was elementary. So she came and gave me supports like slanted clipboard or raised lined paper or a scope, like a monocular thing,
Mm-hmm.
magnifying glass, things like that. And then I would sit in the front row whenever, even like high school or college, when you had more like row seating. So I would always sit
Mm-hmm.
front, um, and things like that. Um, and I started to see, of course, an eye doctor every year or a couple of times a year to get my eyes checked. I had glasses when I was an infant.
Oh, okay.
I forget how early that was, maybe 6 months old or something like that. I had glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had that, and then I got contacts in the sixth grade, and that's what I use now. So
Okay.
I would say currently some of the issues with my vision. I'm nearsighted, so I have trouble seeing far away. And then when I get corrected for that, I have trouble seeing up close. So
Mm-hmm.
driving is a little tricky. I'm able to, thankfully, but I had to get doctor approval for that.
Mm-hmm.
People don't necessarily like driving with me because I think it shows in my driving skills. I make it. I'm very thankful.
Yeah.
Like restaurant menus. If it's a menu I have to read, I just use a flashlight to give me more
Okay.
contrast. Or I'll take a picture of like a menu at a casual restaurant and zoom in on the picture to view it. So,
Mm-hmm.
or my computer at work, I have a giant cursor and I just zoom in on everything to see it. So that's probably the biggest ongoing thing. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD last year as an
Okay.
adult. And that may or may not be contributed to prematurity. I think I have struggled with executive functioning issues growing up and just difficulty focusing and organizing and following through with things, and time
Mm-hmm.
management has been an issue. So I know a lot of people these days deal with that, it seems, but
Yeah.
that has been a struggle. And
But I
then,
wonder too, Shannon, like, does vision play into that?
mm,
You know what I mean? Being
mhm,
able to like clearly see it or focus on it, because that's something that I actually see with Bryson as well. I'm talking about Bryson. For those of you new to the channel, Bryson is my son. Sometimes it's his attention for things is a little bit shorter. And I don't know if that has something to do with vision, or for Bryson, if it's just interest. Don't really
mm,
know if that ties together or not, but potentially.
yeah,
So those are more like physical things that you use. So you had your vision teacher, you had your physicians that work with you, you had some of your own strategies you used to kind of make sure you could see the material and maneuver through things like that. What are some of Did you experience any emotional things? Because I know sometimes as parents we see things happen with our children because they may not be like every other child per se, um and they experience emotional, almost, I don't want to say neglect, but they're almost kind of not really in the group because they're not like other, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
did you experience some of those things as a kid, and like how did you kind of work through that?
I did. I would say, well, I'm kind of shy in general. Once people
Okay.
get to know me, I'm very talkative, but I
Mm-hmm.
prefer kind of one-on-one deep conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
just going through school, I felt like I didn't have many friends. There weren't kids in my neighborhood really, and a couple of friends I did have were at church. So at school, I think just building relationships in general was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, and even now, I think socially, so my eyes, when I'm looking at someone, what my right eye is looking at is what I'm actually looking at, but my left eye turns. It's off center all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually was because of one of the surgeries that happened. That was a result of one of the surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
And so socially, when I meet someone, especially if it's in a group setting, sometimes I'll introduce myself or ask a question and they'll just kind of stare at me blankly, or they'll like look over their shoulder because they don't know I'm talking to them. So then I have to say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm actually talking to you. It just looks like I'm not. And then they understand. So some of
Okay.
that would bring up maybe I actually don't mind it.
Yeah.
now because it's part of my story. Like
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with my eye being off because
Hmm.
it's an outward display of what happened that no one would actually know about
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah.
So it gives me a way to talk about my story, I guess, a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, so growing up, I was um I was never bullied, thankfully, but I did
That's
feel
good.
um kind of on the outside a lot.
Okay.
And whether that was just me being shy or I don't know, maybe people saw that I was different or looked different. But I think praise God that early on I grew up in the church. And so I learned about him as a young child and have been growing in that sense. And I think throughout the loneliness that I would feel, I knew that God was my friend and that he would be with me and would provide for me and comfort me and help me to navigate those situations. And it's really sweet because I prayed all throughout junior high, high school, um, for really good friends. And I just felt like I didn't fit in and I didn't have really good friends.
Hmm.
But now, like in my church community that I'm in now and with my roommates, I have some girls that I would call my best friends. And it's so, so sweet and really an answer to prayer, even if later than I might have liked earlier in my life. I'm really loving the community that I'm in now. So,
And you know what? I think you said, so I heard a couple of things as you were talking. Like I heard the introduction to Christ early.
mm,
That's definitely a way to encourage your children to let them know that they are loved, even if it doesn't look like they're loved by people on the outside, right? And then two, I heard that you have to consider your child. So you're naturally a shy person. So as a parent, we have to look at both their personality, but also give them the opportunities to be in spaces with other individuals so that they don't feel left out, right?
mm,
And then three, I heard time. So it may not always happen in the time that we want, but we have to give it time, um, let those prayers kind of work. And
yeah.
then eventually you will begin to see the things that you've kind of been praying for. So those are some of the things that just kind of popped out as you were talking about what that looked like. So fast forwarding, we're talking about previous, now we're talking about we had an opportunity to go to school, right? So, how did you get into speech therapy? Why did you choose this career? What do you find motivating about it? Just talk to us a little bit about your career now as a speech
Yeah.
therapist.
I've always loved little kids. That was a passion of mine since I was little. I can remember being around 7 years old and just wanting to hold every baby that I saw because God just put this caring side of me that I want to care for kids. So I
Hmm.
started volunteering in my church's nursery when I was in the sixth grade. And really, up until last year, I had been doing that until that time of different ages. So, love kids, knew I wanted to help them in some way. Growing up, my dad had encouraged me to go into nursing, which I had kind of planned on. And then I realized I'm not great at science. I don't want to give people shots, maybe not.
Hmm.
And so I thought about teaching, but I don't think I would manage an entire classroom very well. So one-on-one therapy was a really great option. And so I looked into occupational therapy and speech therapy my junior or senior year of high school and got to observe some therapists. And then I started looking up Christian universities that offered those because that was important to me. And I found out about Hardin Simmons in Abilene that
Okay.
had a speech therapy program. And so I decided to go for that.
Wow. So, what do you enjoy the most? I know you enjoy the kids. What do you enjoy out of speech therapy? If you had a like this is the mountaintop of speech
Yeah,
therapy when this happens, what would it be?
yeah, there's a lot. I think one component I love being able to give hope to families, because
Mhm.
sometimes we have families that come to us and say, my child has been here and here and here, and we've tried this and this, and nothing's worked, and it's very difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
parents of special needs kids are truly my heroes, because y'all go through so much, and
Mhm.
it's so difficult. And um, to be able to say, well, this is what we're seeing, and this is a method that we're using that we think could help, and to maybe provide a little more education than they've had before, or things like that. To be able to hear them say, "Wow, like you get me, you understand where we're at, and
Mhm.
I'm so excited to get to do this new thing and be involved." And being providing hope in that way is really
Mhm.
rewarding. And then seeing gains in the kids, even the things that are really small are huge and mean a
Mhm.
lot. And
Yeah.
the kids that are just learning how to talk. We had a girl come in, she was a teenager at the time, maybe around 16, and
Mhm.
she had no sounds whatsoever that she could imitate. And now she's using sentences with
Wow.
help. But she understands how to shape her voice and her mouth to produce words. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Or kids that maybe haven't learned yet how to control their air to
Mhm.
blow. So like blowing bubbles or blowing out birthday candles, maybe they've never
Mhm.
done that before, and we can teach them how to do that. And so getting
Yeah.
to see them make those little milestones and participate in things that their peers do that they haven't been able to do yet, and getting to facilitate that is just really rewarding and fun for us.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that because I feel like you guys are being an answer to a prayer.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because I know being in this space that we as parents we see things, right? And we're like, I know it's there. It's in there, but we don't know how to pull it out. And so I think for therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, like you mentioned, that once you see that and then the parents are like, wow, they can finally do that. Even if it's not what we call milestones, in this space, we call them inch stones. So we'll take every inch we can get.
uh,
But those inch stones, eventually they add up to milestones.
mhm,
You know, it may be a little bit slower, but eventually, they get there, or at least they have made progress to where they can do some things independently, or they can do those things better. And
mhm,
I think that's really what it's about. So one of the last questions that I like to ask, well, two questions. So, as a family of faith, what things that you hold on to get you through those challenges in life?
mhm,
And second question, maybe it's a two-part question, is what things would you share with another family to say, hey, hold on to these things to get them through this phase in life?
mhm. I am so thankful for the support of um, family and community and church just throughout my whole life. And my parents would tell me when I was going through the hospital and all of that as an infant that the entire church was praying for me. So they had a really huge prayer network, which is amazing. Like truly, God does answer prayers, and He delights to show Himself to His people. So I am, as whenever I share my testimony, oftentimes I start with my birth story, because
Mm.
I believe that God saved me through His grace and kindness. He literally saved me as an infant when I could have died or could have experienced extreme, a lot more challenges than I do. And so I'm very thankful that He really rescued me from the very beginning, and then spiritually having faith in Him truly is just the biggest gift ever. So I know my parents would say, I asked them this question about what was most helpful for them going through the hardest part of this. And they both said community, having support
Mm.
around them, neighbors and church members, community groups, bringing them meals and praying for them and just being there for them is so,
Yeah.
so big, because no one can really do this on their own. You need to have people around you. So I would say if someone doesn't have that, to seek it out. And there's thankfully a lot of areas and ways that can be done through organizations like yours, different ministries, different Facebook groups.
Mhm.
Hospitals offer different groups to connect with other people, and just having a support system around. And if someone's not involved in a church yet, or if they don't have a faith, like honestly, the Lord is, I feel, the reason why I'm living and the reason why I have purpose. And
Mhm.
He gives me truly hope
Yeah.
for the future, and comfort and love and grace and peace in my life and joy right now. So ultimately, if someone doesn't know the Lord, I would encourage them to look into that, because He loves you so much and wants you to know Him. And then to seek out a local church and be involved, because truly they can provide a lot of support. So
Absolutely. Well, I think she said it better than I could say it. I mean, community, you know, um, that's really what we're here for, to be a part of that community, as you said, to provide them that support along this journey. And Shannon, I am so thankful that you took the time to sit down with me and just kind of share your story. And that last part, I almost wanted to shed a tear. I'm trying to hold it in. So I do. I really appreciate you for sharing your story and sharing this journey and sharing those words of hope and inspiration. And for families that are watching this, if you know someone who is either going through, or you yourself are going through, please take this video and share it. And we pray that it is really a blessing to you, and that it is inspiration for your life and inspiration for this journey. And thank you.
thank you, Rita. This is so fun. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely.